Blog Talk Radio. Welcome to the Institute for Personal Development, Kriya Yoga Ashram, where total consciousness is the new frontier.
Kriya Yoga is union of the individual with the divine. Join us as we explore the practices to initiate this process.
Good morning. Welcome to the Voice of Yoga. Let's talk consciousness. I am your hostess, Lisa Winton, and with me is Kenny Toy, also known as Swami Jayananda, founder of the Institute for Personal Development, located here in Hampton, New Hampshire. Good morning, Swami. Thanks for being here today. How are you?
Good morning, and a happy new year to you. I'm doing pretty good today. How about you?
Well, I'm starting this new year off pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good. Happy New Year to you and all of our listeners out there. And I want to thank you all for tuning in. Today on The Voice of Yoga, we will be talking about the new year, 2018, and how it can be a wonderful time to start a new life. We will discuss the power of the mind and how it can be used to create changes in our reality. Join in as Swami explains some of the Kriya Yoga concepts about the mind and chakra system, and how to use resolutions and affirmations with clear intentions. The best way to predict your future is to create it. Resolutions are thoughts with specific intentions, and how we think is what we become. Listen as we show how to use the causal spiritual body to create our future. Welcome to the Voice of Yoga. We are talking consciousness. Join the Kriya Yoga Spiritual Advance to get the light in your soul, to attune with divine law seeking expression. So, Swami, on this New Year's, I thought what I would do is just give a little bit of a brief history about New Year's and why we celebrate it. So the earliest known New Year's celebrations were actually in Mesopotamia back in 2000 BC. And in 1582, the Gregorian calendar, which marks January 1st as a new year, was adopted by the Roman Catholic Church. So what's interesting is the month January is named after Janus, the god with two faces, which means one looking forward and one looking backward. So do you think that that could be something that we should do, is look at what we have done previously, say in 2017, to help guide us to living our life in 2018?
Well, I think looking forward, looking backward are important observations that and things that you want to keep in your field of awareness, but you also want to be as much in the present moment as you possibly can. And so having that awareness of what's going on right now is your strongest focal point, I would say. And having goals, things that you're moving towards, but also not losing sight of where you came from is quite helpful.
I know this is a time of year where a lot of people make their New Year's resolutions, and I think we make these resolutions basically to break some bad habits or maybe even to start some new ones. But let's talk about that, about New Year's resolutions, and why don't they work?
Well, it's very individual. I think for some people they work, but sticking to anything oftentimes can be problematic for some of us. And a lot of it is developing the discipline to be able to have follow through with anything that you undertake, having a plan for what you're undertaking, and having observable guidelines to making sure that you're moving in the right direction with your plan are pretty helpful things. One of the reasons why in Kriya Yoga we use the labyrinth, which is a nice tool where you don't just focus on one thing, but you really look at your life as a whole, and you build your life based on all of the departments in your life. And so that helps you maintain what we call balance and harmony.
And I think those are two words that are so important for everybody right now, balance and harmony, where I think everybody is striving to have that in their lives, incorporating that into their daily lives, at work, their personal lives, relationships. Like you said, that would be using all the tools from the labyrinth.
Right. And I think one of the things that is really essential is what we talked a little bit about in the opening introduction, is the use of the causal spiritual body. I think it's really a really important point of focus is the role of spirit with regard to development and just daily activity. That spirit is the essence of creation, and the causal spiritual body holds the template for perfect creation, where I think positive thinking can be somewhat helpful, but it is kind of a step down from this concept of really harmonizing ourselves with divine law seeking expression. And I really like that phrase in the Lord's Prayer where it says, "Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." This whole thing of the will of God that is oftentimes a really neglected area. I think we get too involved in our personal selfhood, and we lose touch with this whole thing of a collective purpose.
Yeah, interesting. Well, in the summary, we said that we were going to talk about the chakra system and the mind, and using resolutions as affirmations with clear intentions. So if we use what you said, thy will be done, if we can use our intentions and put God first, that should be a pretty good step in our being successful with resolutions, right?
Yeah, that's a good step for anyone in establishing your sense of self. That having a sense of connectedness with a greater whole, having a sense of purpose. But each and every one of us, the ultimate purpose that you can have to your life is to glorify the divine, to glorify the Creator, and to give up personal interests for the betterment of this greater whole. Because like we were saying, that does hold the template for perfect creation.
So it's not like we're going to ask the divine for things, material things. We're basically wanting to get the guidance from the Spirit so that we can live with the fullest potential of those divine qualities.
Yeah, and I think we also kind of get away from that concept of asking God kind of a thing, asking for things where when you're using your mental functions, when you're using your mind and you're establishing your sense of well-being, like we had said, your chakra system is more equated with the lower mind, which is kind of the part of the mind that is related to our senses. And it enables us to get around on a material level. And a really important part of establishing, a resolution, establishing a plan for yourself. Because we must live in the real world. And to have that in harmony with a greater whole, with a sense of collective purpose, produces the best return. And if you have starting points and you also have a direction for your goal, that kind of stuff helps with adherence to a plan, because you can see it unfolding. You can see it moving in a direction. You have advancement, you have progress. It's encouraging. If it's scattered and you don't really have goals and objectives, then you can become discouraged. And so working with your lower mind and also having a sense of moving towards the concept of our higher mind. This whole thing of a progression and unfolding in development where we're going from material beliefs to spiritual beliefs. That's a big phase in human development. And in Kriya Yoga, we call that pratyahara. It's the fifth stage of yoga. The term pratyahara means sense withdrawal. So we're moving from lower mind into the realms of the higher mind, which means that you're really moving from your chakra system, which is more the makeup of your astral mental body, and you're moving into divine law, the workings of the causal spiritual body, which is your optimal position of importance.
Well, I know we have been talking before in some previous radio shows about the difference between ideas and thoughts. So maybe that can help us keep us on the right track for setting resolutions or goals, like you said earlier, for this coming year. So if we have resolutions that come from ideas, that could put us on the right track as opposed to those coming from thoughts. So can you review that difference for our viewers between thoughts and ideas?
Yeah, thoughts come from human thinking. It comes from sensual perception. It comes from the realms of matter and mind, which are dualistic, where ideas come from the absolute. They come from the unified state. Now, the important thing to understand, the difference between the two, is that ideas coming from divine law, to recognize them, they must be positive, they must be harmonious, they must resonate with peace, love, happiness, and goodness. That there is no duality that comes from the unified state. Anything that has good and bad, right and wrong, light and dark, positive and negative, comes from the realms of thought. And human thought is fallible, whereas divine idea is infallible. Because like we were saying, that is the template for perfect creation. And so using your lower mind to access your higher mind really becomes probably a much better endeavor than to try and create your reality with human thought, which is, like we said, it's more of an approximation of what divine law has in store for us. Whereas if you can get that the direct line to the causal spiritual dimension, then of course you eliminate any guesswork that would be involved in interpreting these types of insights.
And then if we can use that coupled with what you had said earlier, using the labyrinth, that's where everything gets connected, using the chakra system and the mind and then ideas.
Yeah, the yoga process is first we must divide and conquer before we can unite and stand. That you really have to develop your lower mind with your four mental functions, perception, reason, memory, intuition. And in the process of this developing and using a lot of the strategies that we employ in yoga, we develop willpower. Now, material means and human will have limits. It's not really your optimal base of operation. But if you develop human will and you have the capacity to now separate from sensual awareness the information that's coming from thoughts, then you can use your will to align yourself with divine law, which is the best use of that function.
All right, great. Well, I think that's a good place to pause to hear a word from our sponsors. So, listeners, we'll be back with you in just a few moments. Kriya Yoga Theory 2 is a unique and revolutionary practice and forum designed to facilitate the growth process in human development. Hostess is a real experience and has an evidence procedure. You cannot lead someone to permanent change by doing for them what they must do themselves. Personal accountability and responsibility are the foundation of Kriya Yoga Theory 2. You must be engaged and devoted. Prana power brings virtue to overcome fear, wisdom to overcome ignorance, purpose to overcome selfishness, enthusiasm to overcome laziness. Kriya Yoga is a path of action, knowledge, and devotion. These sessions are a celestial positioning system to guide the individual into union with the divine. For more information or to sign up for your next session online, go to www.ipdtransform.com. Namaste. Welcome back. For those of you just joining us, you're listening to The Voice of Yoga, and we are talking consciousness. So, Swami, I know we have a big event coming up, the full moon, and the full moon, the first one for the new year, is actually called a wolf moon, which I thought was very interesting. And I think this year it's also a super moon. So I was wondering if maybe if you could give us some insights about the full moon.
Yeah, the nice thing about the full moon is that is a delivery day. What the new moon promises, which was the new moon that we had on December 18th, is now coming to fruition. So having the full moon is your delivery day. That's when whatever began on December 18th now is in full bloom for us. And that's going to be at 9:25 p.m. today, which I think is kind of significant when you have a lunation on like a new beginning, like New Year's, is pretty powerful. And this particular new moon has some interesting configurations that we could kind of focus on. Not only do you have the opposition, Cancer Capricorn, opposition from the 10th house to the 4th house, where the moon is in the 10th house and the sun is in the 4th house in Capricorn. But we also have accompanying that is a grand trine, which involves the moon in Cancer in the 10th house, and then we have Neptune in Pisces, and we also have Mars in Scorpio. Now, what's interesting about this grand trine is that all of the planets that are involved in this grand trine are in rulership. So the moon is in Cancer, Neptune is in Pisces, and Mars is in Scorpio. That means that these planets are comfortable, and there is a certain sense of familiarity about the message that they are provoking, which is where you have the moon, which is what we put into form and how we nurture what we put into form. Mars is what we desire. And Neptune, of course, is our connection to the divine. It is our longing to return to the unified state. And so this is a great opportunity for us to really start to put into form this concept of spiritual reality and the role of desire in that process. Because the Christian concept of spirituality is to love the Lord thy God with your heart, your soul, and your mind, whereas the Buddhist is to desire the nothing or the void or the absolute. And so here's an opportunity for all of us with a new beginning and also a delivery day, that this comes to our doorstep kind of a thing. And to attune yourself to that and to be prepared for that would be optimal at this time.
So you're saying it's a good time for us to maybe plan or work on our desire to be with our divinity and to exercise those divine qualities that we had mentioned earlier.
Right, to really open yourself up to peace, love, happiness, and goodness, and to become more motivated by it, become more immersed in it, so that we live out from it rather than looking up to it, kind of a thing.
So is there any particular suggestions that you have for people? Should we be using affirmations? Should we be journaling? I mean, what's the best way for us to take advantage of the celestial positioning right now?
Well, like we had said earlier, I'm using the labyrinth, going through each department, having intention. Having intention for whatever it is that you right now think puts you in harmony with divine law. And like we said, anything that is productive of peace, love, happiness, and goodness is the direction that you want to be moving towards and supporting. And anything that is in discord with that, it's a good thing to maybe start to think about letting go. Because we all have a unique talent. We all have personal interests. And to have these in alignment with your lofty aspirations is optimal. That's what produces harmony. If there's conflict, then that's what puts us out of sync with this divine law.
And I think that's what we're all trying to do, is we're all trying to find that sense of harmony, like we said earlier, in all the departments of our lives. And I really do think that people, they celebrate New Year's because they really do truly want to have a joyous new year, and not just for the one day, but for the entire year. And I think that if they celebrate with joy, then that's the first step in starting the new year towards that. And I think joy is one of those feelings that does bring you closer to a divine sense.
Yeah, I would agree that it really keeps you, it's the conduit for divine love. And so keeping your feeling state happy, and not really on like a superficial level, but if you can be happy with what you need, your essential needs, that's probably the best base of operation that you could cultivate. And that's what Kriya Yoga builds on. To be happy because you have your number one need, that you have a primary relationship with divine law, that you have a sense of connectedness to this very precious resource that we really can't live without. But a lot of us don't have attention for it, and a lot of us haven't put it in its place of importance, that we're still looking for other things that we associate with this feeling of being happy. But when you make that internal connection and you start using what you really do need to produce that feeling that I'm happy, I'm special, I'm good enough, then you cultivate a sense of stillness in your inner environment. That this feeling of joy is way more constant and consistent. That stillness produces a calmness in the mind, which then produces clarity in our thinking. And that's where we can start to really differentiate between human thought and divine insight. The difference between thinking humanly and knowing spiritually.
Well, that's a good point. While you were talking, I was reminded when I was taking college classes, we had to learn the Maslow's theory of hierarchy, and that was, teaching us basically the basic needs for humans, which was, food, shelter, those types of things. And then here you're saying that our basic need really is to have that relationship with your divinity. And those two things really couldn't be too farther from the truth. We're from each other.
What two things are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking about the Maslow's theory of hierarchy, where where he states that in order for us to be happy, we have to have certain things in order.
Yeah, right. That what you find is that they're putting a lesser God in a position of importance of a greater God. It's one of the reasons why the split between science and religion has had such an impact on civilization, humanity in general. And to bring this simple concept back into the foreground is paramount in development. Like I had said earlier, we don't understand the importance of religion. We don't understand the importance of spirit in human development. Mm. And if you put a lesser God in position of importance of a greater God, you create a failure force. Mm.
Well, I think it's about that time we have to start closing down our program for today. So listeners, I'd like to invite you out there to please visit the website. It's www.ipdtransform.com. So once you're there, you can make comments about this show or post comments about future shows you would like us to do. But keep those comments coming. We do enjoy hearing from you. So next week, we're going to have another great show for you. We're going to be talking about science and religion. And also be sure to tune in to our weekly Facebook Live videos every Wednesday around 5 p.m. So, Swami, do you have any other final thoughts or comments about today's Happy New Year show?
Well, again, I would like to wish everybody a Happy New Year and good luck with any resolutions that they're undertaking, and to keep their feeling state positive, happy, and think about what would matter if you didn't have your next breath, and start to celebrate the availability of what we really do need. And that will keep that channel to peace, love, happiness, and goodness open. So with that, I'll wish everybody a good day. Namaste.
And thank you for listening to our program, The Voice of Yoga. This is Lisa Winton along with Swami Jayananda signing off. Have a wonderful Kriya Yoga kind of day. Happy New Year. Namaste.